Where in the world is Chris Jones? That's what the question is today on Monday Night Live. This is your show, the live Q&A. I want to know what's going on with it too, because it's even surprising me that it got to this point. We're going to talk about why, when, where, and how, and what's going on in Chiefs camp tonight on RGR Football. Welcome in. This is Dan Harms. I'm Ryan Tracy. We're going to be talking Chiefs all night long. Hope you guys are having a good day. I can understand if you're a little twitchy, though. It's okay. There's a couple of things going on. We're going to walk you through it tonight, and everything's going to be copacetic. So, Mr. Harms, it's Monday. It's been a few days of camp and more drama than I remember of all last year's camp. Am I wrong?
Oh no, not even a little bit. That's just don't put your hand there, please. Come here. You're definitely not wrong. Drama.
Avery's just telling me to calm it down. Avery's like, Trace, you gotta chill.
Yeah. So drama because Chris Jones. Oh, Avery wants to say hi. So yeah,
drama is our brand today.
Yeah, Chris Jones, where you at, my guy? The report from we're going to do this around the word report, okay? That Chris Jones wants $30 million is what's driving up the drama. So, okay, please.
Absolutely.
Just one second. What happened?
And that report is from Nate Taylor at The Athletic. And I gotta tell you, if Nate put it in writing in an article, he's heard it from someone who has a concept. Nate is not making things up. So there's a legitimate question about, is that viable? Is it rational? And here's the thing. And I was talked about this on Locked On Sports today. And you'll hear more about that tomorrow. This is what happened. We're going through the offseason, and we expected to get to the point where Quentin Williams, I personally felt, was going to come in a little bit higher in that 26-ish range. He came in at 24. That leaves more of a gap than we expected for Chris Jones to be above Quentin Williams, making him the second highest paid player, and below Aaron Donald. Granted, Chris has been adamant, I want to be the second paid. I'm not trying to be the highest. I understand that Aaron Donald's Aaron Donald, and kudos to him for doing that. But I think what it did, and this is just my personal perception, I have not spoken to anybody's representation. This is what I'm putting together based on what I know about some of the people involved. When that gap came in, Chris probably would have been able to sign at 27, 28, just to say he was second. When that gap came in so big, I think the agents see an opportunity to go for broke and to push it right up against the floor, right underneath Aaron Donald. And honestly, that's their job. Mm-hmm. If I'm Chris Jones, I want them to do their job the best they can for me. I don't think this has anything to do with what Chris Jones wants, needs, or feels like he's entitled to in terms of staying in Kansas City. This is an opportunity to make his last giant payday. And I think his reps are doing what they're supposed to do for him.
Exactly. Like, this is all agent driven. And that's what it is. We don't know if Chris, that's actually what Chris wants. But we do know it's how you get closer to what he actually wants. That's the one way to do it. You put it out there that he wants 30, so you can compromise and meet in the middle. That's what this is all about. It's not about getting to 30. I'll be very honest. If he wants 30 and the Chiefs pay him 30, I'll be very, very surprised. I'll be very surprised, because he has said multiple times he wants to finish his career in Kansas City. You want to know how you don't do that? By making $30+ million as a defensive tackle. Like, you just don't really do that. And as much as he's worth it, I won't lie, he's worth it. I'll be surprised if he ends up paying that, but I won't complain about it. He's worth every penny of it. It's more of, he understands the dynamics and the politics of the situation. He also knows that agents have to do their job. If things aren't going the way they want them to do, they have to find a way to get the team to.
Yeah.
Out of one Arrowhead Drive. They don't do that. So when we hear the reports, again, I'm not trying to say that anything that was heard from Nate Taylor is false. I tend not to believe most things that are reported monetarily, because most of that conversation that goes on behind closed doors don't get leaked. They just don't. So in regards to what Chris Jones wants, I'm sure in a perfect world, he'd be like, yeah, I'll take $30 million a year. This is not a perfect world, y'all. Not a perfect world. It's just not realistic. So I think we're looking at 28. I think 28 is probably what the number is going to end up being. Totally okay with that myself, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I think that's, like you said, that's part of the negotiation. Again, I think if Quentin Williams had come in at 26 and a half, I think this would have been a much cleaner process because it's boom, meet in the middle, you're done. I don't think it becomes this bonanza of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see where that goes. But let's make a couple of things clear. The other thing that's been rampant today, I think I've gotten, 20 text messages, and I don't even know how many DMs. I stopped looking at Twitter this afternoon.
Yeah.
The Chiefs aren't trading Chris Jones. At least not yet. If it got to the point where something happens and there's animosity and they're not going to get to a contract, if something changes from what we understand now, which is that the money is the difference, there's no acrimony, there's no problem, like he wants to be here, all that is leading towards it will get done.
Yeah.
That's fine. If something were to change that pisses somebody off, then that could possibly be something that you have to start looking at. But this was not. If they had meant to trade Chris Jones, if he demanded money or whatever, they would have done it pre-draft just like they did with Tyreek Hill, because that's how they maximize their return.
Yeah.
And from protecting the franchise, that's what Brett Veach would have sought to do. So as of today, I don't see there's any way that he gets traded. Now, if we hear next week or the week after, and I am leaning towards, I think I told ESPN today, my opinion is about 10 days. Just given on where it is and what has to happen. If it goes 2 weeks and somebody starts to get aggravated and we start hearing things in the media about the negotiation, then we got to start to get nervous, because that's where bridges get burnt. And that's where something trade-wise might have to materialize. At this point, it's 99.9% that Chris Jones is going to be right here and finish out his career, and we're all going to be happy as a clam.
Yep.
You just can't never say never.
No, unfortunately, you can't. Like, that's the thing. We can be as certain as we want, and until that point, that's when you got to make things different. Am I still here, everybody? Because it appears that Ryan is frozen. So we'll just kind of go on like everything is normal. It's just, again, make sure, I want you guys to tell me if I'm here. Dan, okay, I'm here. So Ryan is frozen. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about, that's not going to happen. So let's start some of the questions before, as Ryan figures out what's going on with his internet at the moment. So we're going to remove him for just a minute so we can figure that out. And we'll start off with Corbin Wade. But just as an upfront, you guys, this is the Monday Night Q&A. It's your show. You guys can do whatever you want. Hey, look at that. He's back. And we will
just text it today.
and we will answer your questions. Obviously, if you guys want to super chat and support us, that's always welcome. We love it when you guys do that, and we will guarantee you get an answer tonight if you do so. So we'll start right off with Corbin. What contract would Chris Jones potentially be looking at with the cap? So we kind of talked a little bit about this, but Ryan's got the cap situation all brought up because he's just a prepared person, unlike myself. And so
I don't know about that.
I mean, I think we can reasonably assume it will be a backloaded contract because the cap will explode down the line, and you have to be able to create some wiggle room now in the next 2 years to be able to give yourself that leeway down the line. So what are you thinking?
This is the thing, is right now they're at 500 and some K. They have to recoup enough to operate this year. That means 8 to 10 million. When we look at 24, this is only top 51. And they have 51 in cap space. That changes if you're talking about 30. All of a sudden, 30 to Chris Jones in a cap year, that changes the math on what you're able to do next time. And what that means is it changes the math on Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton. This is the backside of the sword when you're taking elite players that you come to grow on in the second round and you don't have a fifth year option on them. This gets a little bit tricky. So then we have to count in, we're likely to see about a 35 million cap raise. So then we're back up to about 50-ish. Can that work? I think that it can. I don't think, like I said, that they have to go do Patrick's restructure next year. I think we're 26 on that right now. We'll see if anything changes. Kels, Toney, okay, maybe. I think Donovan Smith's likely a 1 year and out. He's on a 1 year, and I don't know that you're going to look to bring him back. We'll see. If he's all world, then we'll talk about it. But right now, you got to plan as you can plan. And I think they're in decent shape, even if they had to take that giant cap hit. Now, when you look at 25, what we get to, that's where things really open up because everybody's falling off. You know, you still have Toney and Kelsey under contract. Their cap numbers are in the 20s. Juwan would then be 24. And obviously Patrick at 48 mil. That's just going to be something you're going to have to deal with. I don't know a way around that without a giant restructure. So in the end, I think it's just this season. If you can squeeze it, you can structure it right. I'm sure, okay, he wants 30 a year. That's great. It's more important about how they get to that number across the contract. I don't think they're going to do void years. I don't think they're going to leave anything off the length of the contract. So it is real money. And I haven't heard any peeps about Box about the guaranteed. So seems they're in the ballpark, which should be around 65, a little bit more. I think it was 66 in actual, but on signing was only 48 for Quentin Williams. So it's above that, certainly. I think probably around 65 is what we're talking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, we have an understanding that the Chiefs have one of the best monetary people in the business in Brent Till. So like they know how to make things work when they need to get that done. And there's two players in this roster that you want to pretty much make things work. And it's Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes. They're going to find a way to get this contract through however they have to guarantee it, however long they want it to be. I would imagine 4 years is what we're going to look at with 28 falling in between 28 and $29 million a year on the average per. So you'll see a lot of that backloaded. He'll probably have somewhere around what do you think is going to, if you're guessing, because I'm not a cap person, I'm not very good at doing this. Well, if they're trying to create cap, how much are they going to make his first year, his base salary this year to give them some of that cap space relief?
Well, unfortunately, because it's an extension, they have to either keep or move to bonus some of his current salary. So what's he on the cap right now? It's 19. So they'd have to turn that to bonus. They can get it down to about 12-ish is the way that I understand the numbers right now, giving you 16 million cap relief.
Okay.
That's about it. Like I said, you need 8 to 10 to operate for, catastrophic injury that you might have to replace, everything, et cetera, practice squad. I know nobody talks about the practice squad. One of the drawbacks to having a 16-man practice squad is your cost has gone up rather dramatically. So now you need about $4.5 million just to sustain, depending on bonuses, what you're doing on the practice squad. So there are definitely things that have to be done there. And James, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, but this is the backside of the sword. The cutting side that we're all very happy with is we have the second best defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman in the league on this roster.
Yeah.
The backside of it that sucks is now you got to pay him the second most money for an interior defensive line. So
it's just what it is.
You can thank Aaron Donald for it being that number. If it wasn't for Aaron Donald's contract, this probably would have come in at 25, 26 and been done. But elite is elite. And I think the more that we see two things, Tom Brady started this and the league is kind of following along. The time to throw has come down the last 6 consecutive years in the NFL. So the edges don't have the opportunity they used to have to be the impact players they were. Now the shortest path, the quickest guy to get in a quarterback's face is the defensive tackle, the 3-tech that takes the interior pass rush. That's what Chris Jones does better than anybody, including Aaron Donald. So think of it as a juxtaposition. You're paying a rookie on the outside. You're paying Charles Omenihu $8 million to be your starting edge on the other side. You've got Karlaftis, a second-year player, starting on the opposite side. You're cheap now at the outside edge positions, and you're moving your money into the middle. I can live with that. When you look at across the front, the top 4 starters, I think you're still. I'd have to run the numbers, but I think you're within 10% of what you've been spending. It's just a shift, and you just got to survive this year to make that shift complete, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to also take Chris Jones out of the equation. Who's your 3-tech? Charles Omenihu? Realistically, is he the guy that would be there for you? Especially if Tershawn Wharton starts the year on the PUP list. He's probably your 3-tech. And as good as I think he is as an interior player, You don't want him there all the time. You really don't. You want him there on pass rush downs. You don't want him there playing against the run because guess what? He's getting uprooted every time by doubles.
Yeah.
Chris Jones defeats doubles at a Aaron Donald rate. So yes, I understand that the money itself is steep, but you have to also consider your defense without Chris Jones. And that's the other side that we really kind of, it's hard to quantify because there's so much unknown. But we do know one thing: without Chris Jones on the defense, they are significantly worse. If not like bottom 5-ish, bottom 10-ish in the NFL. They have good players, but Chris Jones makes it all work. It makes everybody better behind him.
Yeah. You got to have cats to drive every defense. He's theirs. There's just no way around it.
Yep.
I'm going to let you do me a favor. Take this one while I try to switch internets again because mine's about to go down again.
There we go. Ryan's internet is just a failing him. So appreciate you, Jackson. Who are you most impressed with so far from what we've seen from camp? I've been super excited to see Rice, Sky, and Prince. So I think that for me, I've been the most impressed so far with Deneric Prince, who has been able to kind of showcase some of the things that he's done as a pass catcher that we didn't necessarily get to see at Tulsa. This is kind of like the Isaiah Pacheco issue last year where Rutgers just never threw him the football, but right now we're seeing him be involved a lot more in the passing game. And regardless of how it plays out, I think that's a good situation to be in if your fourth running back is able to contribute in the passing game because it's still a passing offense. They're going to run the ball a little bit more, I think, this year than they have in seasons past, only because of the defenses they're playing against. But having that option for pass catchers behind Isaiah Pacheco, who is still not a very good pass catcher, I'll say it myself. I don't believe he's a very good pass catcher. You have McKinnon and, Clyde Edwards-Helaire behind him as better pass catchers. And then if Deneric Prince is another guy who, has that same kind of playing style, but also can catch the football, it adds a little bit to your room. So I've been more impressed with him because we never got to see that to an extent.
And that's fair, especially when it comes down to the blue. It takes you aback a little bit more, and I'm excited for what that means just going into year two. I do have. I didn't pull the clip correctly. There was a nice clip today on the defensive side from Trent McDuffie, but it goes towards Pacheco in particular in coming along, in the fact that they're all that much farther down the line. That the stark difference between where the rookie class was at this time last year, just a couple days into camp, where they ended, and now where they are again. I think that all is coming into it. You can start to work on the little things like your pass catching. It's good to have somebody in the room that can show you, and that's what Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are for. It's how it rounds out. You got to take your opportunities until we see some actual competition, and I mean preseason games by that. I won't know for certain if we've seen a step or if we're seeing a possibility, if we're not seeing anything at all. That's the way it happens.
Let's put the pads on, y'all. Let's put the pads on.
Yeah, I usually I can last a few days before I get antsy, but I'm already there this year. Let's start hitting. I'm done.
Yeah, right.
Cody, appreciate you, and I did get your email this time. I will follow up with you, and we'll try to figure something out, bud. And I appreciate it. Very generous of you. Everybody give Cody a hand because he's got an idea cooking that I think everybody's going to dig. Did either of you know?
It's be pretty cool.
Yeah. Did any of you guys know that Tony had surgery? And I certainly did not. In fact, no member of the media that I've talked to, and I've talked to quite a number of them in Kansas City, had any clue. And I had it on authority from a source that I have that he had been at every single session, both OTAs, like official with the team, and everything that Mahomes did. And they didn't miss anything. So that's why yesterday I was pretty optimistic that, this is just a little tweak. It's not the soft tissue that he's had before. None of us knew that he had what I've been told is a cleanup procedure. Yeah. And that's just it's a punch. It's a sucker punch. I wasn't ready for it.
It is. He also tweeted today that it's not as bad as it was originally reported by Travis Kelce, who is not a doctor, everybody.
Right.
Not a doctor.
He just plays one on TV.
Exactly. Travis Kelce is a fantastic, his own show. And then he did, SNL. He's not a doctor. Okay. So everything that was said, it's more of Travis just kind of, we're going to actually talk about it right now, Ben. It's more about Travis trying to instill hope because he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know the extent of the injury. He doesn't know the extent of anything. He just kind of has to go with his opinions that they know that they want him on the field. But that's what he was trying to iterate today, and it got a little bit of away from him because again, no one had talked about the injury. He was the first person to even talk about it, and sometimes that can get out of hands. And Tony said on Twitter that it's not as bad as was reported. We're gonna find out if that's just a player talking himself up because players do that too, or if he's actually going to be missing some time for the Chiefs. But just take it day by day. We'll see how the training staff talks. We'll see how Andy Reid talks about it tomorrow. That's the big thing we want to wait for. The actual talk from Andy Reid tomorrow about how he addresses Kadarius Toney's situation. I also will like to note that Tony himself retweeted the video of Patrick Mahomes after he got hurt in the the AFC divisional game from the trainer that Patrick was working with. I apologize, I can't remember her name. If you remember her name,
it's Julie Freymire, I believe.
Yes, Freymire, that's right, Julie Freymire, he said that he would trust his life with her. So there's at least some work going on there behind the scenes that he's comfortable with her, and she's obviously done a great job with everybody, with Patrick Mahomes as being the most notable person to getting him in the situation to play. So I think he's in very good hands, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. And, especially for her, but for the whole staff, including the strength conditioning guys. Barry Rubin has retired this year, so it's an adjusted staff, but they work with the trainers quite often. There's a handoff there in every franchise that goes from actual rehab with the training staff to reconditioning with the strength staff, and the whole group all reports up to Rick Burkholder. And so Rick gets a lot of the credit solo, but it is the people that work with the athletes day to day that aren't Rick Burkholder that do a lot of the heavy lifting. And it's good to see them not only get some credit, but have that confidence voiced by the players that they spend so much time on. So I also am optimistic there. And Denny, it's not that he needs surgery that we're aware of. I have not heard that at all, that there's any reason to think that he has to go back under, but that he had one we didn't know about. And here's the rub on the PUP list. This is always the crux of the issue. You can go on the PUP list all camp long, but in order to be available at all during the regular season, you must be active on the 53-man roster on day one, period. You cannot stay on the PUP. If you are on the PUP on day one of the league of the season, you cannot come back. You are done for the year. That's what happened to Justin Ross last year. So that is, in fact, the issue. He would have to make the 53 initially. You would have to have another guy waiting in the wings so you can then put him onto the PUP and bring another guy back. And it's a juggling mess. Cap-wise, none of that affects anything because you're going to have that initial concept unless he went on IR and then there's all kinds of rigmarole about how everybody gets paid that wise. You're not going to save yourself much space is what I'm saying. So let's hope that everything is fine by the fact that he's going to be on the 53 one way or the other, unless there's something that we don't know yet, and it is going to be some significant kind of repair. Keep everything crossed, everybody. Cam, appreciate you. A slight break from the Chiefs-related drama. Do you think Calvin Ridley how do you think he's going to do this year? Is his over 875 a safe bet? Lastly, could Chiefs have made a move on him? I think they could have. I question whether they felt that year was going to pay off for him. Dan will have to tell you about the yardage because I don't project the whole league. But I will say this. I think playing with Trevor Lawrence is a plus for him. And if there was one place he could end up that gives him a chance to regain his former prominence, playing with Trevor Lawrence is a good place to do it. Dan, can he do 875?
I think he can. I wouldn't say it's like a safe bet, only because we don't know anything about how his body's going to handle getting hit again. He hasn't played in 2 years. All right, let's not forget he was injured, and then he was gambling on games and suspended a year. Okay, there's lots of camp hype for guys coming out in shorts, and he's going to be among that. He's going to be among that list. But I'll say this is that, like Ryan said, he's in a great situation to be a 1,200 plus yard receiver if he gets back to what he was. there's almost no better place for him. And Doug Peterson knows exactly how to use Calvin Ridley with the young phenom quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. If there's one thing, I think that there's chemistry between Zay Jones and Christian Kirk already in place there, and Evan Ingram. We have to remember that there are 4 pass catchers now in Jacksonville that are going to want the ball, that have connection with Trevor Lawrence. And it's hard to figure out exactly how it's going to shake out. I assume Calvin Ridley is going to be the number 1 receiver, but they are going to be scheming plays up for Evan Ingram, for Christian Kirk, and they have, Trevor Lawrence and Zay Jones have a really good connection. So it's, I want to say it's a safe bet. I'm confident he gets over that, but I wouldn't bet my life savings on it if I'm being honest.
Fair enough. I'm highlighting a few more. You guys, if you would hit the thumbs up for us, that would be great. A lot of our members are reminding me that I should be talking about that. I appreciate you guys keeping me on the straight and narrow there. Patrick, would there be value to try and trade Jones for a CeeDee Lamb or Jay Jettas? I don't recognize that one. Pay a younger weapon rather than an older defender in Chris Jones. I mean, if it came to that, oh yeah, Jefferson ain't going anywhere. They would burn Minnesota to the ground before they trade him. I guarantee you that. But you do make a good point. If you get to a point, if there is a point in our future where they cannot get it done, and Chris will not sign here for whatever reason, if it turns sour, then yes, it would be worth going after somebody like that that you think you can bring into the fold and rejuvenate. CeeDee Lamb would be a pick there. I know Jerry Jeudy was on the block from the Broncos. I don't think you're going to get that done, but you never know. Sean Payton's calling the shots now. I don't think he cares about rivalries. Sean wants what Sean wants. I don't think he could give a rip. So we'll find out. But yes, that is the other way to go, except for the fact that you clearly, outside of Keandre Coburn, have not invested in a young interior defensive lineman. You don't have the horses there. Now, Keandre, I really like, but he's just one dude. So, you would have to have more volume. I feel like we saw it last year, right? When they had this slew of young defensive backs, and it worked. This year, we have a slew of young receivers, right? And I think it's going to work. If they really wanted to, they'd be going that direction too, and they'd be trying to go young at the D tackle position and try to flood that to get as many options as possible. And I think that's the new genre that we don't talk about enough, is that Veach has figured out that there is room, if you pay a couple of stars, to have volume at positions you have to bolster.
That's the big thing. That is the big thing, because they have figured out their cornerback formula and their safety formula. They have figured out the exact guys that they want that fit well in the system, and they have identified it and have drafted them. It's worked out. Offensive line, they're just throwing money, throwing bodies at it. Works. Wide receiver, they're saying, okay, we got some day 2 picks here. We've traded a lower day 2 pick for a talented player. They're kind of throwing some bodies at there too. Defensive end, they're like first round pick. Defensive tackle, UDFA, 6th round draft pick, Derek Nottie, Chris Jones. It doesn't feel like they figured out their defensive tackle method yet. And then the one guy that really was showing signs last year, Colin Saunders, got overpaid in terms of what the Chiefs wanted to pay him. So he was on the trend upward, and the Saints said, we'll take that. And the Chiefs were like, we don't want to pay that because we want to pay Chris Jones. And that's the thing. Are you going to identify your defensive tackle method? Are you going to be able to identify that? Is the method they have at defensive end enough to be able to keep going without Chris Jones too? That's something else, is that where they've drafted defensive end, Chris Jones is kind of signature to that working out. He's the focal point. He creates one-on-ones for them. Without that, is your defensive end drafting method working? I would say no as of right now. It all just comes back to, can you possibly get anything remotely close to his actual value in a trade? Probably not. That's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, you would again only do that in case of emergency. There's just no way around it. Frank, is CJ on our Ring of Fame with a third contract? It's a great question. With this third contract, I think it's a shoe-in. He is number 8 right now, and I can share this with you guys if I hit the right button. Let me zoom this in. He's number 8 on the list right now in all-time sacks for this franchise. He will pass not only Jerry Mays, but probably Buck Buchanan this season.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're talking top 6, and he had a couple seasons left to go if he signs a 4-year, right? And you're talking he's up there with, yeah, that's within the realm of possibility this season, right? You're talking Chris Jones would then be with Derek Thomas and Tamba Hali and Neil Smith and Justin Houston, the 2 duos that we've seen over the last 30 years that have been elite, right? So, yes, there's no doubt in my mind he's in the ring as soon as he's gone. No 5th year. He doesn't have to wait. Like, he's going to be in there. I just hope that it doesn't get to the point where it's soured like it did with Justin Houston. But I am confident that won't happen.
I think the bigger thing was that they didn't want to pay Justin because of the injuries.
True.
And he was like, I'm worth it. And they were like, yeah, but your injuries, and you don't want to take anything off the table that we want to put off the table, put in incentives. I think that was the big issue. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. Chris Jones is on the field coming off the season where he just played the most snaps of his career. I think that the only way that this sours is if they're like, no, we are not paying you over $25 million, period. We're not doing it. And if that were the case, we'd know about it.
I would think so. When you said that, my whole thing is like, yeah, but.
Exactly. The yeah, buts. It's what it is, man.
Luis, with Kadarius injured, who do you guys have as the wide receivers as Justin Ross got some first team reps? Okay, let's go through that. Now, again, remembering that we don't think this is a permanent injury. We think he'll be available come the season or shortly thereafter. So he would be on the 53. So we'll still go through 6, but we got to keep in mind that we do think he'll have to be on the initial 53 and then rotate through and do the whole rigmarole, right? So Sky and MVS would be the next 2, correct? Sorry, CVS. I got drugs in the brain. I could use some cough medicine, I guess. I don't know what I'm doing here. Good Lord. It ain't Walgreens, I'll tell you that. But anyway. So Sky Moore, MVS, your top 2 after that. The question becomes next. And I think that's open for discussion still. Rashee Rice had a nice OTA. Had a couple catches the first day. Richie James had a couple the next day. Justin Ross is beginning reps with the ones. You still have Smith Marset. You still have Watson. I think those guys are all viable for what is 6 or 7 spots.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to actually give like what you thought it was going to be.
Sorry, I froze there for a second. No, you are knee deep in projecting wide receiver.
Okay, that's fine.
So
I got it.
I want to see you.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. I'm very adamant that I believe that Richie James is going to be the wide receiver 4 on this roster. Understand that just means to make the roster. Usage is always going to be different because Andy Reid uses a lot of different receivers, a lot of different packages, so on and so forth. So in terms of how I think they can be used, wide receiver 4, Richie James, where that's projecting with Kadarius Toney, without MVS, Sky Moore, Richie James, Justin Watson, Justin Ross. I think that's how it's going to go.
Okay. I'm with you. I am comfortable with that. I'm trying to pull up the roster depth chart here. I don't think they've updated it yet, though. So the question would be, can somebody squeeze in? I think Ross and Watson are probably battling a little bit. I think the cash they gave Watson makes me think that they might try to keep him, put Justin Ross on the practice squad, put Kadarius onto the pup, and then bring Justin right back. That seems like the gymnastics they might try to perform. Yeah. I don't know that I like that, but it seems like it could be there. I'm just checking the Chiefs official. I don't think we have a depth chart yet. We do not.
No.
So I have other options. Hold on. Let's go here and this together, you guys. if I can click it correctly. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Kadarius out, MVS, Sky, Richie, Rasheed, Watson. That's how our lads has it. I tend to agree. It's Justin Ross and Smith Marset that are the next two for me. I know everybody wants to know about John Ross. I haven't heard enough to feel like he's really in the mix yet. Dan, do you disagree?
No, I don't. That's been my stance from day one. I didn't think he was going to make the roster or even be really pushing to make it.
Okay, fair enough. So for me, it really comes down to Justin Watson, Justin Ross, or Amir Smith Marset. Who can make their claim on the sixth spot, right? Because that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And maybe they're only going to keep 6. I don't know. I still want them to keep 7 just to be safe.
Yeah, I want them to as well. I don't think they're going to. And I think that Nico Remigio has an outside chance if he can continue to flash as a receiver. We know the returner he is, but he's been flashing without the veterans there. He was a go-to receiver for Patrick Mahomes early on in their 3 days without the veterans. If he can continue to show out as a receiver, having some maybe versatility in the special teams department, he might have a shot, especially if they keep 7.
Yeah, I can get down with that. I'm with you. And I didn't mean to leave him out, folks. He was just off the screen there so that I could blow it up so you could see it enough. Return specialist specific at this point. Let's see if he can grow his target share in camp. Okay. Clicking is not working very well. Maestro, I hope you're well. With the current QBs in the league, would you say that the position is too heavy in comparison to previous years? I honestly don't think I would. There's probably only 6 or 7 elite quarterbacks in this league. I don't think Dak is an elite quarterback. I think he's passable. There are a number of guys that get a lot of hype that I think are just above average, admittedly, but not right home about type quarterbacks. I would argue probably after 13, 14, you're fishing for something still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. I really think that there's maybe 4, 5 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't believe that Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback, and I don't think I'll get much pushback on that from people that really, watch him play.
Even I don't, and I like him a lot.
I like him a lot too. I liked him since he was, coming out of Oklahoma, Alabama. I liked him. I just didn't think he could be an elite quarterback. He's in a great system for him. So you have these handful of elite quarterbacks. I do think Lamar Jackson is going to push that to 6 this year. The questions with injuries and stuff like that. I think this offense is going to I'll make him more of an unquestioned elite quarterback personally, but we'll see how that works.
Okay. I have trouble getting there. I'm really interested to see if you're right. Because I don't really care about OBJ and Bateman back. I still question whether Mark can really be an elite passer.
It'll be this year. That's how we'll find out. Exactly. We're going to find out this year.
You're absolutely right. Des, thanks for the support as always, buddy, especially after last night. If they have been talking for months, was the 30 APY a new thing? It feels like it was. Now, I know that they had talked previous in the spring, and then they kind of shut it down, and they stayed out of contact for a while. But to have that narrowed down, that was the first time I heard the number. And I'd been theorizing 28-ish, and most of my contacts that won't confirm things are like, you're in the ballpark. So, okay. But yeah, that does feel like it. Again, it does feel like it's agent driven, and they saw an opportunity there where they felt like Williams was going to come in higher, and so Chris would automatically be higher too. And so now they feel like they have to over ask in order to get to the number they really feel that he deserves.
I think that's the big thing, is that everyone expected Williams to come in higher than he did, and now they're like, well, we don't want to necessarily have to push it up to 30 if we don't have to. So the agents are like getting on the horses saying, okay, we're far apart on a deal. We want 30. That's what this is. I would be willing to bet a large amount of money that that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, I kind of feel like
Posturing.
That too. But Des, thanks for the support, folks. If you send a super chat, you will get an answer tonight. This is your show. If you want any of the gear, jump into the store link below in the description. You can get that there as well. Corbin said, honest question, how many unsportsmanlike taunting penalties does Toney get this season? If he plays 14 games, I'm saying 2. And a
I would
heavy
say
eye
3.
roll from Andy Reid.
No, we're gonna get one of the.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what it is.
That's more likely. Yeah, you're on it. Matt Peterson, I wanted to ask this before this is my first live stream. Well, welcome,
That's
Matt.
awesome.
Congrats.
Welcome in.
Folks, we are here every Monday night, like all year long, unless it's a holiday or something cataclysmic has happened to my truck. So don't worry, you'll have another opportunity. Why is there so much hype around so many of the receivers at camp than in previous years? It seems like everyone talks about someone. And that's a really good question, Matt. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, it feels like that because there is no Tyreek Hill, because there's enough guys that have shown promise. Anybody could step up into a major role, and we just don't know who it is. So pick your horse and back them. You know what I mean?
It's exactly what it is. They got 6 receivers, and everyone's like, "Who's going to be the number 1? Who's going to do it? Who's doing it this year?" Last year, I guess it was Juju Smith-Schuster. Who's going to do it this year? Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to have that be the next guy that steps up. So they get on there, they pick somebody, and then they ride them hard. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'm not even going to make that analogy. That was going to be terrible. We're out of here. Okay. Rob, thank you very much. Rob's one of our members, folks. If you want to be a member and get in the Discord and get my, I didn't even post it. I cussed so much on my members video from last week that I couldn't even put it up. I felt self-conscious. So I'm going to break that down again for you.
At least 3 times a year. I do. It's supposed to be this way. That's how it's supposed to be.
I know, but still, I'm going to tame it down. You're going to get the real version here, where you can actually hear something in between the 6-letter, 4-letter, 12-letter words. But you can do that by being a member. You can click join underneath Dan, and you can get in there, and that will automatically get you into the Discord. You just got to link your YouTube account and your Discord account, and you're in like Flynn. Rob was asking, though, Chris Clark was talking about having to pay Toney and possibly losing Humphrey and Bolton due to Chris Jones getting paid. What is the root that is the hamstringing this team financially? I mean, I won't say it's hamstringing, but when you have an elite quarterback, there's a reason people are always talking about franchise quarterback contracts sink Super Bowl hopes. This team has bucked that trend, but it does take a lot of work because that number's big. Chris Jones, if he gets this 28 or 30, he will make more than I believe it's 15 starting quarterbacks in this league. That tells you it's like having 2 franchise quarterbacks, basically. Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, the root. But I disagree with Chris because I do think there are some things that you can do to stagger the hits for both Creed Humphrey and Bolton. And I'll say this. If you had to get 2 contracts done of very, very good players that you don't have a 5th year on, linebacker and center are 2 of the best because they're 2 of the most economical bang for the buck positions in contracts in the whole league. So
absolutely. And
I think they'll be okay.
You can always argue, hey, Nick, you want a bigger contract? Be able to play on 3rd downs. Honestly, that's what this comes down to. If you want the bigger contract, we have to see you as more than a 1-2 down run defender. And he's gotten better, but being honest with ourselves, he is a 1-2 down defender who typically is used at the line of scrimmage on 3rd downs and obvious pass situations to create one-on-ones, to create confusion. He's not sitting back there in cover saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to cover somebody.
Right.
It's really not. It's a different situation. So you have an economical way of getting out of this. They also just brought in Drew Tranquil, who they could be using to leverage one of these linebackers into saying, hey, play better. You want more money? Play better. Otherwise, we're going to say adios, and we're going to keep Drew Tranquil over here, who's already a few years into it and is going to take a little bit less money because that's just how it works.
And he understands how that game's played and is willing.
Oh.
That's going to be the big part there. Clinton, thank you. Appreciate you. I believe Justin Ross is already number 6 on this roster above Watson.
Interesting.
You are not alone, my friend. There are a lot of people that believe that. I will only say this in that I have not seen either of them practice. Obviously, I saw a game live last year, watched all the film and all that stuff, but I have not seen the return of Justin Ross versus Justin Watson. So until I see that later in camp, and I'm going to be very late to camp this year, folks, I won't be able to make that determination for myself. So I can only go off of what the Chiefs are doing, and they are taking a hard look at Ross right now. So for his sake, I hope that continues, and I hope that you're right, Clinton. Logan, good logo, buddy. Cheers. Good to see you guys and actually make it. Well, we're glad that you're here, and thanks for the support, pal.
Thanks for being in, man.
Yeah, good looking logo. I like that one. We're going to keep rolling because I'm already well behind, and Dan's going to have to start shooting things at me to get me rubber bands at the screen or something. Chief KT, why can't V just bite the bullet and pay the man? It's simple. It's not that simple, unfortunately.
It's really not.
Because you still have to make ground for other players this season. It's about this year. Next year can be taken care of, but
Yeah.
I do think that they're trying, and I do think that you got to be careful not to overpay, because that gets you in a situation that a lot of teams have been in this particular year where they overpaid enough and then they had to part ways with people. You don't want to do that with a guy that's going to be in your ring. So I say take the steady path. Any idea how much more money the Chiefs are paying out to players not on the team or elsewhere? And does that number affect the cap? It doesn't affect the cap. It's called dead money. And it does affect your bottom line cash, and that is important to know. Let me take a look right now. I am trying to find it. Dan, can you navigate that better than me? No, I think I just found it, so I will show you guys right here. So here's the Chiefs situation. Cap space here on the left. Dead money here on the right. So we're gonna have to scroll all the way down because the Chiefs are here at 562K available, according to Over the Cap right now. They have 7.65 in dead money right now. That means they either owed bonus or they were contractually obligated to somebody who is no longer on the roster. And if you look, you're going to see that Bills, Jags, Chargers, Bengals, they're all down here with the Chiefs, Jets, Dolphins. This is one of the things that I think really sets teams apart that people don't talk about enough. When you look up here and you see Packers, Eagles are the rarity here, and this is mostly due to Carson Wentz, where they have a ton of dead money, but they're still a lead on the field. Most of these teams are in dire straits when they get to that point in the dead money.
It's tough. All of this posturing is trying to buy time to figure out how they're going to get this done.
Right?
That's really what this is.
Canadian Chief Dan, Red Wing puck signed by Mr. Hockey or Steve Y.
It's not. It's actually signed by the greatest defenseman to ever play in Detroit, Nicholas Lidstrom. So, yeah, my parents got that for me a little while ago. It's a great puck, and I don't know how you can see it on the screen, but it's right there. Yeah.
I'll have to widen the shot out there. James, who is on the bubble right now on the Chiefs to make the team, this year's team? Guys that are on the bubble right now, the one that's been playing well that's standing out to me is Nazi Johnson.
Nazi Johnson was like right number one on my head. I'm like, Nazi is looking like he might make it. He's there. I think Ross is a bubble guy. There's probably a safety I'm forgetting about. That's maybe a bubble guy. They're a secondary. There's going to be a few bubble secondary members. There just are. They have a lot of bodies there, a lot of young bodies, and they kept adding to it. So there's going to be somebody that you want. You know, Nick Jones. Is he gonna be on the roster? Is he gonna be a bubble guy? We'll find out. Probably some offensive linemen as well, but typically you're going to see some of those guys. Also, BJ Thompson's probably a bubble guy too.
Yeah, agreed. I'm glad you brought up Nick because Nick had a great OTAs and was making plays in PBUs. Now Nazi's making those plays in camp. Camp trumps OTAs, folks. But I do think this is going to be a battle ongoing, so I'm pretty pumped for it, to tell you the truth. We're going to speed up a little bit. Tom, with KT possibly out for an indefinite time, do you foresee defenses changing up their secondary game plan, not being as concerned about deep balls? I don't actually, because I don't think that teams were anticipating Kadarius Toney being the deep threat. That's still MVS. That's really his role. So I think they were probably planning on playing more man. They did last year. I think they're going to continue that. But now I think they probably feel like they can play more press and take more chances because you got Richie and you got MVS and you got a bunch of young dudes other than that. So it feels like we might be in to see more aggressive defensive secondary play coming at the Chiefs this year. That's just my gut reaction.
Possibly. I think Sky showed last year that he can beat press very well, very easily. I think MVS, the problem with MVS is it's hit or miss. If you don't hit right, he's gone. He's gone. He's gone for a touchdown. And I think Mahomes and that connection will be better this year. So they have a couple guys on the outside that can play and can beat press, and that might cause some teams to hesitate. That's all that I can think about.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Tom. I know you got
Tom.
another one. Appreciate your support, buddy. Real quick, Logan, do you think Rice gets thrown in the wolves with Toney's availability in question, sort of like the DBs? I don't actually. I think they rely on a veteran like James.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even Smith-Marset.
That's been my thing is I feel like not only does Richie Rice's skill set not translate to Toney's role, Richie James's does. We need to know what they're asking him to learn. That's the big thing. Are they asking him to learn the X receiver position? Are they doing what they did with Sky Moore? Does he have to learn everything? We don't know. We don't know what they're doing with Rasheed. So that's something we'll maybe get more insight on as the season unfolds.
Red, you asked a great question that I cannot answer. How much time do you think this will set Toney back? 2 to 4 weeks? I honestly don't know. I don't know if it was cartilage. I don't know if it was a meniscus. Those are the two things that you generally clean up, quote unquote. I just don't know what the prognosis is because I don't know what the condition is. If I find I'll let you know.
I've seen a tweet about Nate Taylor suggesting they might hold him out completely until in between weeks 1 and 2 of preseason.
Ah, okay.
They might just not even worry about it.
Rock and roll. I can live with it. I was at camp today, says Patrick, and Prince and Rice are so good. Richie James is going to be sneaky good for us. Willie is still the funniest guy on the team. Tranquil's a stud, and George looks really good. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear all that because this is the thing. Every 53 is different, but you got to have a 53 that can adapt. And that's, at the end of the day, how you get through a 20-game season. So, Patrick, thanks for the update. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to hear it. Quentin, scale 1 to 10, how ready are we for football to be back? I don't know, 14.
Can we break that scale? Are we allowed to break it? Because I am so ready. It's not even close to a
10. Josh, thank you for the support, buddy, as well as being a member. This is the year of the 48, as in 4 and 8. Save this one for the end of the year. Okay, Josh, I'm going to screenshot that right now. Hold on.
Right now, Josh, we're gonna save that super chat.
I screened it. Thank you, buddy. Donnie, hope you're well. How hyped are you for Noah Gray from 1 to 10? I think he could see a rise. I talked about this on Locked On Chiefs, too. If Toney has to be out, it's not just that you're going to force Rashee Rice into the mix or you're going to force Smith-Marset into the mix, too. You're going to spread it out, and you're going to use Jody Fortson more. If you go back and watch, especially quarterback did a good job of showing just what Jody was able to do when healthy. If Jody can stay healthy, he's going to play a big role, and so is Noah. So I'm going to say a 7 for me, Donnie.
6 for me. I think that Noah's a fine player. I just think that in terms of upside, he's extremely capped. So 6 is enough for me.
Okay, cool. Adam, hope you're doing well up there. Let me know when the fires are dying down, will you? Who makes bigger impact on the D this year, Willie Gay or Drew Tranquil? Also, does the better performing linebacker get the contract and the other get traded? Whew.
This is kind of something we hinted at earlier, right?
You got some good questions there, Adam.
Yeah, that's a jam-packed super chat. So you spent it well. Thank you very much, man. I'm making us think a little bit here.
Good.
Well,
God.
I'll take the first crack at this. So I think the guy who's going to make the biggest impact, and it's not necessarily based off of his play, is Drew Tranquil.
Okay.
Because he's going to force a hierarchy in how the defense is played and how they approach the linebacker position going forward. So he's going to have an impact on the roster construction, how they plan on going forward, and that kind of lends itself right into your second question, the better performing linebacker get the contract and traded. It's very possible that whoever plays the best gets it. It's also very possible that both are on the team next year. I don't think there's a world where there's only one or the other. I do believe that they can both be on the roster. It makes things a little bit more difficult, but they've already talked about Drew Tranquil playing all 3 positions. Spags talked about that today in his presser. So especially if what we're seeing with Leo Chanel comes to fruition and he ends up transferring to defensive end, guess what, baby? You got 3 linebackers that can do everything.
And that's a plus. And here's the thing. Unfortunately, across the league, linebacker is not an in-demand kind of position.
Yeah.
Somebody have to have a significant injury. If one of the Ravens linebackers went down, okay, maybe because you paid for Roquan and you got Queen. Like they're a team that would value that, right? But there's not a ton of those teams. So especially because the cost goes up when you're talking about trade deadline trades, right? Like you're gonna get yours if you're trading a dude.
Absolutely.
I tend to think that a trade is probably not going to happen. But Adam, crazier things have happened, buddy. Thank you, sir. Mark, thank you. I know we still have a couple of years to go, but do you think the Chiefs will re-sign Creed? They can re-sign him after next season. That's what we're concerned about. But yes, they will definitely re-sign Creed. I would put the chances of Creed re-signing at 99 and Nick Bolton at about 90.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think Creed would be the priority.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I know Mizzou fans, you guys don't want to hear that. I honestly don't want to hear that because I am a former linebacker and I like to see that play. But centers are like gold, man.
Getting a good center, they're cheap and they're some of the most important position players you can get. So yeah, you get a good one, you hold on to them.
Adam, were you surprised that D-Hop signed for as much as he did? I was. I didn't think anybody'd do that, and it makes a lot of sense why he's not in Kansas City now. I would have been hard pressed to like swallow that contract for the Chiefs. Scott, thank you. Appreciate it. With all the KT drama, are we about to witness Richie James Nation coming out early to party? Yeah, I think you just might.
We've been here.
Because you're going to hear Giants fans talk him down, and that's absolutely fine. No offense, but the system in New York, while it might have some terminology because Kafka's there, it is not the Chiefs system. And I don't care who you are. There ain't any resemblance between Daniel Jones and Patrick Mahomes. So I don't care what Giants fans have to say. So they're going to boo-hoo you. And everybody that goes to camp and watches the reps is going to start to get excited about Richie James like we've been for most of the summer.
It's wild. All he did was convert third downs and make difficult catches for that team, and they just want to crap on him for no reason.
It doesn't make
it's
any
nuts.
sense. I feel bad for him. But heck,
too.
Welcome to Kansas City, Richie. I'm Richie James. Anyway, how much production do you see Richie ending up with in XYZ or S teams? Where will he impact the most? And will there be a third down threat as well? I'm glad that you threw that in there, Tom. And thank you for supporting us yet again. And thank you, Scott, for the last one. I really feel like he can line up in a couple of places, Dan. Where do you prefer him?
I still think he's going to be the backup to MVS, like the X receiver. But ideally, I'd like to see him used a little bit as a big slot as well. And when you have that guy who's got, some burst, but he not necessarily the best at getting off press, you can hide him in the slot a little bit and you can say, hey, go beat up on a slot corner down the field. Like you could do that. And I think that that's a possibility as well. He's not a Z. So that when people say that if Kadarius Toney misses time, then Rashee Rice just slots in right there. No, they're very different skill sets. He's not a Z. He wins with physicality, and X and big slot are where you win the most with those regards. So that's how I
big
see
slots where I want him. I think he. I mean, I think he can have a heyday in there. He will play some special teams too, Tom. So I do think that's legit.
Maybe a gunner.
The third down threat I really like because he is a physical go catch point, get it type guy, way more so than MVS is. So if he always styled his game, he has said after D-Hop. So give him a chance. Let's see what he can do. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, PK. Hope you guys are doing well. What's the realistic ceiling for both the offense and the defense? Can they both be top 10, Dan?
Realistically, no. I think that the offense will be the top 2 offense in the NFL, probably number 1 again, because they are almost every single year. But you heard Fags talk about it today. They don't care about rankings. They care about efficiency. They care about efficiency ranking towards the end of the season. And again, if you go back to their DVOA ranking from last year, when it's weighted toward the end of the season, they were a top 13 unit. That matters to the Chiefs. Weighting it towards the end of the season, they don't care how they play in the beginning of the season. They want to get to the postseason and get better. And that's what they've been doing. So efficiency matters to them, limiting those big plays, forcing teams into third downs, into punts. That's what matters to them.
Thank you, PK. We're going to wrap it up. The last couple here, folks. We appreciate you. Scuba, thank you for coming back second night in a row. Appreciate you guys. What trade would it take for CJ to even make it happen in fantasy land, like an elite player or something? I do not want to see him go at all, though. I agree with you. I don't want to see him go. I don't think that he does. But Dan, like if it got sour, what would they have to have?
You have to have a first round draft pick. You probably have to have a first and a third to think about it, because you have to be able to try to replace something defensively with Chris Jones, whether that's going to be a defensive tackle or a defensive end, someone to be able to rush the passer. But it's more than that. He's worth more than that. You're not going to find the one-for-one replacement. You need a little bit more draft capital or a player with upside that was not drafted on day 3 to really get that trade done. So I don't think they could start entertaining those trades without that in place first.
I think you could see a disgruntled first contract player be in the mix as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that. But not somebody you immediately have to pay a ton of money to either, because then you're right same boat. So I don't think that would happen. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, Rob. Is there any chance or upside in restructuring Pat's contract to help retain great position players? Well, that's basically what they've done. In converting year by year the roster bonus, it allows them to do that. They did take some. I think it was $12 million this year, but they didn't take it all from Patrick's contract. So that is built in already, and that is the goal. The question becomes, position players are one thing. Key foundational defensive tackles that are basically the defensive equivalent of Patrick, that's a little bit harder to get paid. So that's, I think, why we're in that squeeze right now. But I do think it's going to work out.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. And we're going to end. Oh, we got 2 more. Sorry. We're going to see what Doug had to say. And thank you, Rob. Appreciate you. Is Deion Bush on the bubble, Dan? He's played well for the special teams.
Yeah, he is, in my opinion, he's a core special teams guy. He is not on the bubble. I think he's a penciled in, going to be on the roster day 1 guy.
Okay. So safety-wise, would that put Mike Edwards on the bubble? Or do you think 5's a real possibility?
But I think 5's a real possibility, because you also have the ability to name some of these guys as corners and slide them in there, or vice versa. They don't necessarily have to, say 5 and 5, but yeah, they can get a little creative with it.
Okay. And Doug's got another one here before we go, folks. Make sure you like, sub, and hit that bell if you're not one of us already, and get signed up for those memberships if you want into the Discord. I think you'll like it over there. Could there be a possibility that instead of 7 wide receivers, they take an extra O lineman or an extra CB, meaning 11 DBs or 10 offensive linemen? That's certainly on the table, Doug. Both those scenarios make sense. Right now, feeling decent about the tackles, though, so I don't know if they need 10.
Yeah, they don't need 10. But they're going to keep 4 tight ends, which is probably what's going to bump the 7 receivers down. And that's the thing, is they want 4 tight ends on the roster and in lieu of 7 receivers. At least that's the assumption right now. We'll see if anyone can force their hand, because that's always a possibility, guys. It's always a possibility.
Yeah. You can never say never. That's going to do it for us, folks. Remember, we're here every week at this time. If it's Monday Night Football, we'll be a little bit earlier so we can preview what's happening. We'll also give you post-game there, too. Dan's working away. We have a great lineup as always. If you're ready for the season, you're going to get Gary, you're going to get Seth, you're going to get Dan, you're going to get me. You might get more of me than you want, but it's going to be okay, I swear. But you can get the gear. You can get clicked in here to be one of us in the Rogue Nation. You can get into the Discord. That's all available. And hey, it's another season. We're getting ready to lift off. We appreciate you guys being here. Dan, I appreciate you taking your time away from Avery. Whatever you have to hear about it.
Every time, you guys, this is what we do. We're gearing up for the season. It's coming around. It's coming fast, guys. Here it is.
I'm talking quarterbacks later this week on NFL 33. We have some new writers over there as well. So go get subbed. It can be as little as you like. We have several tiers over there on the Substack to get all the information. But go get on NFL33.com so you can pay attention to the rest of the league as well. We appreciate you guys. Have a great Monday night. We'll be back with more tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get some good news. If you're ready for it, so are we. Have a good one. We'll talk to you then.